Welcome to our channel. Today we dive into an eerie tale that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Gene Hackman, a legendary figure in cinema, led a life filled with triumph. But in his final years, there was one hidden message that remains unknown to most. A chilling and mysterious message captured in footage that has never been released to the public. Could it be a farewell, a parting word, or something deeper that we still don't understand? Stay tuned to uncover never-before-seen footage of Gene Hackman in his final days, and let's decode the mystery behind his final message. No one could have predicted that a Hollywood legend would fade not in triumph, but in a chilling, unseen darkness. Gene Hackman, once at the height of stardom, left behind a legacy not in accolades, but in haunting cries echoing through his final moments. His passing was far from serene. Instead, he was ensnared in the labyrinth of his own mind, where love, isolation, and manipulation slowly consumed him. Yet the most unsettling part isn't his death. It's what he left behind. A secret recording, capturing Hackman's panic, his vulnerability, and a final desperate cry for escape. Who reduced a Hollywood icon to pleading in terror? Who stripped him of his last shred of control? Was it love or an unseen force manipulating his every move? This secret is too dark to stay buried, and now it's on the brink of coming to light. Santa Fe, New Mexico, a land where the sun scorches the hills beneath a vast, endless sky, and the sunset turns the red rocks to gold. In this tranquil haven, one name quietly faded from Hollywood: Gene Hackman. Known for his gritty, intense roles in Unforgiven, The French Connection, and The Conversation, Hackman wasn't just an actor, but a symbol of a relentless cinematic era where only the loudest talents could make their mark. While many of his peers held on to fame through final performances or surprise returns, Hackman chose a different path. After announcing his retirement in 2004, he vanished from the public eye. No interviews, no public appearances, no retrospectives. The only thing the world knew was that he lived in seclusion with his second wife, Betsy Arakawa, in a mansion tucked away on the outskirts of Santa Fe, a place he referred to as the land of wind and silence. If this tale has captured your curiosity and sense of mystery, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our future videos filled with captivating stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Gene Hackman's final message, so drop a comment below and share your perspective. And remember to tap the notification bell so you stay updated on all our latest content. The house quickly became known among locals as the Silent Villa, not just for its remote location, but for the eerie, unshakable air of mystery that surrounded it. Delivery drivers seldom saw the owners, and staff only received cryptic instructions to leave items at the gate. Neighbors, living just a few hundred meters away, rarely glimpsed Hackman stepping outside. In the midst of this silence, countless rumors began to swirl. Some speculated that Hackman was working on an unpublished memoir. Others believed he was recording his final reflections for future generations. Whispers also circulated that Betsy Arakawa had convinced him to sever all ties with Hollywood through an unspoken pact. The truth remained elusive, for the Silent Villa was a fortress against prying eyes. But in 2023, a small detail slipped through the cracks, shared by a plumber who had been hired to do work at the villa. He claimed to have seen an old tape recorder on Hackman's desk, with a handwritten note that read, Final words, private. What the tape contained remained a mystery, but what followed only deepened the eerie tension that clung to the villa. Gene Hackman, a name once synonymous with Hollywood brilliance, had descended into a suffocating silence. He canceled all his routine health checkups and shut out any attempts at communication from former colleagues. One journalist, concerned about his well-being, sent a letter asking after his health. The response was chilling, a blank sheet of paper with 3 hastily scrawled words, "Leave me be." In his final interview in 2004, Gene Hackman remarked, "I've played enough men full of regrets. I'm not willing to become one of them in real life." Yet in his secluded Santa Fe villa, he seemed to have transformed into the very characters he once portrayed, isolated, melancholic, and burdened with an unspoken secret. Betsy Arakawa, his wife of over 30 years, remained just as silent. She turned down all interview requests and refused to accompany him on the rare occasions he ventured outside. It was believed that Betsy was the only one who knew of Hackman's final recording, where he shared his reflections on love, his career, and the dark recesses of his soul. But what was even more unsettling was the timing of the recording, made in early 2024 as Hackman entered his most fragile years. Did he sense his time was running out? Or had the silent villa become a psychological cage where each day felt like an internal monologue with the past? The answers remain a mystery, but one thing is clear. The silent villa was more than just a home. It became the final keeper of a legend, with its walls, shadowed corners, and the wind whispering through them, all holding untold stories. Somewhere, hidden away, that enigmatic tape still exists. Perhaps the final missing piece of the Gene Hackman enigma. His final photo, a frail figure draped in an old sweater with a distant, unwavering gaze fixed on the New Mexico sky, felt like the closing shot of a legendary Hollywood tale. No fanfare, no adoration, just a man alone, immersed in the profound silence of his final moments. Beneath the vast Santa Fe night sky, where the stars shimmer like a silver web over the parched red earth, the silent villa remains as mute and untouched as the lives it has sheltered for over 30 years. Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa weathered the blazing sun and harsh winds of the American Southwest with a quiet strength. On the surface, they seemed like the perfect couple, a portrait of enduring love and humility, deliberately keeping their distance from the Hollywood spotlight. Yet, as is often the case, the truth was far more complicated. Inside the rugged stone walls of their Santa Fe villa, during intimate candlelit dinners shared between just the two of them, a fragile and ambiguous bond existed, one that blended love, possession, and an unspoken obsession. It would later come to be known as the Final Pact. Betsy Arakawa, a petite Hawaiian woman and former pianist with a gentle gaze, carried within her a soul that was both intricate and scarred, haunted by a history of separation. When she met Gene Hackman in the 1980s, it wasn't his fame or Hollywood allure that drew her in, but rather the sense that he was her final lifeline, a piece of driftwood in a stormy sea, offering the promise of safety, but one that might slip away, leaving her adrift. Their love was profound, but as it deepened, it also grew more perilous. Close friends of Hackman confess that after his relationship with Betsy blossomed, many doors began to quietly close. Phone calls went unreturned. Invitations were missed. Gene gradually withdrew from his social circles, even from those who had stood by him through the early years of his storied career. "I'm not leaving Hollywood. I just want to belong somewhere else," Gene once confessed in a rare moment of vulnerability. But those who truly knew him understood that somewhere else meant being with Betsy, where he was willing to forsake everything to find solace in the gaze of the woman he loved. Yet the full picture remained elusive. Whispers from Gene Hackman's old friends hinted that Betsy's love for him was far from straightforward. She was consumed by the fear that Gene, like so many others before him, would eventually leave her. This fear drove her to exert control over every aspect of his life: his breath, his relationships, every name in his contact list, and even his children were not exempt from her influence. Gene Hackman's 3 children from his first marriage became a source of tension. Their once brief phone calls with their father grew increasingly infrequent, and the long-distance letters were met with silence. No one dared to openly accuse Betsy of meddling, but no one could deny the invisible hand she had in every choice Gene made. What was most chilling wasn't just the control, but the secret pact they had forged together, a silent survival agreement they referred to as the final PCT. The exact origins of this pact remain a mystery, but fragmented accounts from a few old friends began to piece together the truth. One starry night in Santa Fe, in the quiet garden of their villa, Gene and Betsy sat under the deep black sky and made a vow. If one of them were to die first, the other would never be left alone. It wasn't a romantic promise, but a pact of survival, an unspoken commitment between 2 souls to remain together forever, no matter the cost, no matter the consequences, regardless of what the future held. The truth began to emerge when it was discovered that Betsy kept a powerful sedative in the drawer of her bedside table. Gene, who had never struggled with severe insomnia before, had been taking the medication regularly for years. Late-night conversations took strange turns as Gene sat by the window, whispering incoherent words, his mind lost in a haze of unsettling dreams. An old friend, the only one who still maintained contact with Gene, recalled, "I once overheard them talking. It wasn't an argument, but it felt like they were planning something neither of them wanted to speak about. No one dared to confront Gene Hackman directly about the final PCT. Did it truly exist? And if it did, was it a pact born of love or a bond forged by an overwhelming fear of separation?" Outside Santa Fe, the silence endured, the harsh desert wind carrying the scent of parched earth and scorched grass. But within the walls of the silent villa, there were only 2 people and an unspoken agreement. Time seemed to stretch unnaturally, slow, heavy, and suffused with an unshakable chill that hung in the air, impossible to ignore. Betsy Arakawa, the petite woman Gene Hackman loved so profoundly, was she his savior, or the one who bound his soul in the final years of his life? And Gene Hackman, the man who once embodied powerful characters in countless films, did he become a prisoner within his own marriage? The truth remains hidden, locked away in the unfinished fragments of the final PCT. In the heart of winter, Santa Fe's dry wind howled through the half-open doors of the old stone villa, once the secluded retreat of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. Now, it stands as a sealed box, holding only rumors and eerie tales about the final days of the film legend. What haunts the public isn't just Gene Hackman's death, but the mystery of his final recording, an enigma yet to be solved. Whether it exists or is merely a rumor remains uncertain, but the stories surrounding it are more enduring than any of Hackman's iconic films. Those who visited the Santa Fe villa before that fateful day whisper of something concealed within its walls, a secret that Gene Hackman sought to reveal in his final moments. It wasn't an ordinary handwritten letter or the rushed scrawl of a 95-year-old man confined within familiar walls, but a trembling voice, raw, fragile, and laced with labored breaths and an undercurrent of dry fear. "If you're hearing this, I'm sorry," began the recording. An apology without a start, an end, a purpose, or an explanation. It resonated through the hoarse voice so iconic of Gene Hackman, but this time, it wasn't Lex Luthor or any other role he had played. It was the voice of a man facing his own mortality. When the forensic team arrived at the mansion after a delivery call went unanswered, they encountered a scene that would haunt them forever. The house was cold and immaculate. The dinner table set for two. Two glasses positioned across from each other with only a few drops of amber wine left in one. There were no letters, no books, no documents, only an old tape recorder nestled among a pile of white napkins. The device appeared untouched, as though it were a prop waiting for someone to find it. When an investigator, his hands trembling, powered it on, there was nothing, no sound, no recording. The memory card was empty, yet a later internal report mentioned an odd detail, a single silver hair at the bottom of the tape recorder. According to stories passed down within the Hackman family, Gene had stopped writing by hand in his 90s due to age-related tremors. Instead, each night before bed, he would turn on a tape recorder and speak to himself, sharing fleeting thoughts, fragmented memories of Hollywood, and moments with Betsy. But then, one day he stopped. Betsy was the one who placed the tape recorder in the safe in her bedroom, telling a close housekeeper, "This is better this way." No one fully understood what she meant, but the house became unsettlingly quiet. Some claimed they heard Leslie Hackman, Gene's daughter, confess that she had a copy of the recording, but Leslie's silence only deepened the mystery. Was the tape more than just a goodbye? Could it contain an accusation against Betsy, a secret pact between them, or even a final cry for freedom from something dark? Did the tape recorder ever truly exist, or was it merely a spectral creation, lingering in the minds of those left behind? The answer may always remain elusive. Investigators discovered no tape recordings, but what they did find was peculiar about the home where Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa met their end. The space didn't feel like the aftermath of a tragedy. Instead, it exuded the sterile ambiance of an eerie theater stage. Each object, every chair, every family photo was arranged with unnerving precision, almost as if placed by an unseen hand following a strict script. Faint light seeped through the curtains, two glasses resting in front of each other on the dining table. There were no signs of sudden chaos, only the quiet remains of a tragic play where Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa performed their final act, with fate as the silent observer. Of all the faces that appeared after the door to the house closed, Leslie Hackman haunted the public the most. She did not cry, beg, or offer any explanations. She simply left a single statement for the press. "My father was a storyteller, and even in his final moments, he told the story he wanted to tell." No recordings, no desperate pleas, no dark secrets concealed behind the polished veneer of the Santa Fe mansion. What truly transpired remains unknown, and it is this silence that serves as the eeriest proof. When the glitz of Hollywood faded and the door to the mansion shut for the last time, the questions lingered. What did Gene Hackman utter in his final moments? And more hauntingly, Who was really there to hear it? There are moments in life that slip by so quietly that no one recalls them. Yet there are others that become etched in legend, not for their noise, but for their complete disappearance from the fabric of reality. Such is the whisper among those who remember the unsettling final weeks at Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's Santa Fe mansion. The neighbors had long been accustomed to the couple's reclusive existence, but never before had the house been so utterly cut off. No mail arrived, no packages were delivered, no one came or went, not even the longtime staff. The mansion, once a place of quiet activity, now felt like a forgotten world, suspended in eerie silence. The iron gate at the foot of the hill was closed, the electronic lock always active, and the security cameras still pointed outward. But they revealed a chilling mystery. All the exterior cameras of the mansion ceased working exactly at 5:32 p.m. on February 14th. There were no signs of malfunction, no signs of tampering. They were simply disconnected, as if someone had pulled the plug, severing the house's connection to the outside world. And from that moment on, Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa gradually disappeared into the void. Information from the local pharmacy revealed a series of puzzling transactions in the 3 months leading up to the mansion's self-imposed isolation. A large quantity of tranquilizers, painkillers, and strong sleeping pills had been repeatedly prescribed under the names of Gene and Betsy, but no one had ever seen them in person at the pharmacy. All the orders were delivered to the mansion's gate, where the delivery drivers reported they were never allowed inside. Notably, among the medications were prescriptions intended for terminal cancer patients, those preparing for a journey with no return ticket. However, Gene's medical records showed no signs of any serious illness, no cancer, no severe mental health issues. So, what were these medications for? When investigators broke into the house after a missing persons report, they faced a chilling paradox. The front door was locked from the inside, the old lock in perfect condition, with no signs of tampering. Everything inside the house, from the furniture to the family photos, remained still and undisturbed. A heavy, eerie feeling enveloped the space, as if the house had frozen in time, becoming a tomb for the past, holding on to secrets that no one could decipher. A book that Gene had been reading lay face down on the armchair beside a cold cup of tea, its surface covered by a thin layer of condensation. Clothes were neatly folded but had not been worn. The fridge was stocked with food, but there was no sign of any cooking for weeks. The bedside lamp remained on day and night, yet the double bed seemed untouched. These eerie weeks were not just a time of disappearance, but a thin line between life and death, a place where people exist but do not truly live. A room on the second floor, where Betsy often practiced the piano, had completely changed. The piano and its stand were gone, replaced by a long table covered with a white cloth, neatly arranged with strange objects. A thick notebook listed Gene and Betsy's favorite songs, not to be listened to, but to be used in a ritual. A large medicine box was divided into compartments by time, containing powerful painkillers. 2 sealed envelopes with no names on them. Everything in the room resembled a small altar, where the owners had prepared for their own departure. Every detail, every breath, showed no sign of intrusion from the outside, no violence, no trace of a struggle. All the evidence pointed to only one possibility. Gene and Betsy had locked themselves in this house, carefully orchestrating a planned exit. But why? Why would a legend, someone who once proudly walked the red carpet, an immortal icon of the silver screen, choose to disappear quietly behind the cold stone walls? What made these two people, who had spent most of their lives together, choose to carry out this strange ritual of self-isolation? Were they running from something? Or had they turned themselves into actors in their final play, a play with no audience, only absolute silence? The eerie weeks passed as if they had never existed. All data was erased. All witnesses remained silent. Even Leslie Hackman, the only person Jean had called before the police broke down the door, stood in the empty room, staring at the lifeless wall, saying only one thing. They wrote the script. I couldn't change it. Perhaps those eerie weeks will forever remain a locked shadow, where memory, fear, and truth blend together, waiting for someone brave enough to step through the final door. Was it love, salvation, or just a gilded cage? That question haunted Leslie Hackman from the moment she stood on the porch of the Santa Fe estate, watching the heavy wooden door close behind the forensic investigation team. Gene Hackman, the father who had once been a solid figure in Leslie's memory, was now nothing more than a shattered legacy. And with each step she took into this final mystery, pieces of the past fell from her, leading her into a story she had never fully understood in the nearly 30 years since. Betsy Arakawa had always been portrayed by the media as a quiet woman, always standing behind supporting Gene Hackman. But as the pieces of the eerie weeks began to fall into place, Leslie started to see a different picture. Betsy was not just a companion. She may have become the one controlling every aspect of Gene's life. The medical records Leslie gathered from the hospitals in Santa Fe and Gene's personal doctor revealed disturbing details. Although Gene was still sharp enough to make treatment decisions, from medications to long-term care plans, every prescription, from sleeping pills and tranquilizers to strong painkillers, was written under Betsy's name. None of the prescriptions were directly requested by Gene. Betsy was the one who signed them. Betsy was the one who received them. Betsy had the key to the medicine cabinet. Not only that, every aspect of Gene's life was under Betsy's control, from his strict diet with precisely calculated calories to the stringent limitations on visitors. Everything was decided by her. At first, Leslie thought it was love, the love of a devoted wife for her sick husband. But the deeper she dug into the notes, the more she realized that the emails between Betsy and the medical team were not just expressions of concern. Gene shouldn't watch the news for too long. Gene should avoid people who might upset him. Gene should take this medication instead of that one. These instructions painted a picture of absolute control. No decision, no matter how small, was made without Betsy's approval. Even the way Gene was to think about his own death was controlled by her. Leslie clearly remembered Gene Hackman at the height of his career. Strong and unyielding, no one could control his thoughts. He chose roles on instinct, bluntly turning down multi-million-dollar scripts just because he didn't like them. He was willing to argue with directors, even walk off set if he felt disrespected. But as he grew older, that image seemed to fade. In his final interviews, Leslie saw her father speaking from a script that Betsy had prepared, avoiding sensitive questions. His gaze was unfocused, his hand placed on Betsy as if clinging to a lifeline, or perhaps as if she was holding him firmly in place. In 2017, as Gene's health began to decline, Leslie noticed a distinct shift in the balance of power. Betsy became the sole spokesperson, controlling every decision for Gene, even refusing interviews, or a return to acting without consulting him. Leslie recalled one summer night in 2019 when she arrived for an unannounced visit. Betsy didn't answer the door immediately, and her hesitation sent a chill down Leslie's spine. When Leslie persisted, Betsy reluctantly let her in. Gene was sitting in the living room, but his eyes were dark and clouded, his smile strained, and every sentence began with an invisible submission. Betsy thinks that. Zrenie. Betsy сказала мне. Zrenie. Betsy сказала мені слід слухати. The strong man who was once Gene Hackman was now nothing more than a shadow of his former self. Betsy insisted that every decision about his medication, even how he would die, was Gene's choice. But Leslie didn't believe it. She had seen the prescriptions Betsy had obtained for her father, the handwritten notes in the bedroom where she listed tasks to help Gene pass peacefully. That sent a chill through Leslie. The question haunted her. Did Gene Hackman really want to die? Or were all those decisions made by Betsy on his behalf? After listening to the top-secret recording, Leslie was shaken, not by the loss, but by the fear that the voice was no longer Gene Hackman's, but an echo, a reflection of Betsy, a forced declaration. She didn't hate Betsy. She couldn't hate the woman who had been by her father's side for 3 decades. But gratitude couldn't erase the doubt that Gene Hackman, the symbol of strength, may have spent his final years as a puppet, manipulated by a love that controlled him. And when the door of the Santa Fe estate closed for the last time, Leslie knew the answer. The keeper of the keys had been locked inside that house, along with secrets that would never be revealed. There are houses that never crumble, even when the people who once lived in them have gone. The Santa Fe estate is one of those places. It wasn't just Gene Hackman's final retirement home, it was a living entity, breathing in the wind that blew through windows that were never fully shut. The residents of Santa Fe called it the Whispering House. Stories spread among the neighbors, the old maintenance workers, those who had seen Gene Hackman standing by the window, silently gazing out at the San Rey de Cristo Mountains. The whispers never stopped. People believed that the breath of Gene and Betsy never left that place, not as a visible ghost, but as a memory trapped, playing over and over like an old film. Footsteps echoed at midnight on the wooden floors. Doors opened and closed softly, even though the estate had been locked up for years. So the story of Gene Hackman's final message remains an unsolved mystery. Does that silence hold a truth that we cannot comprehend? Or is it just another part of the cryptic tale of a silver screen legend? These questions will forever hang in the air, like a ghost that has never left the estate in Santa Fe. Thank you for joining us as we explored these mysterious details. Be sure to follow the channel to continue accompanying us on stories that have yet to be unraveled. We will keep bringing you thrilling, intriguing, and curiosity-filled tales. See you in the next video.